On behalf of the Prime Minister, the Honorable William Marlin, who is off island or just arriving on island about this time, I bid you words of welcome, and I must say I'm very happy that the Department of Communications, together with USM, is able to bring you this third series, a series of lectures aimed at educating our population. Though I wish it could be broadcast live and that more of the population would be able to enjoy it, I do know that they will continue to promote them and that we can go back and visit them time after time again on YouTube. So technology is our friend, but being here in the presence to be able to participate, I think, is an even bigger honor. I see many of the candidates who have postulated themselves, and this gives them a wonderful opportunity to hear, to learn, to question, and therefore I bid you all welcome on behalf of government, and that the information disseminated here this evening will be uplifting to us all. Thank you very much to our lecturers, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, USM. Thank you, DCOM, and let us all enjoy these lectures as we prepare for the very, very important act that will be coming up a bit sooner than we'd anticipated, I must say, but to be prepared and to understand the laws that pertain to these elections and the Parliament of St. Martin is very, very important.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Protocol having been established, I was asked to just say a few words of welcome and a few words on this third lecture. What is important in this election season is that you understand the relationship between democracy and the law. That is vital, that understanding. Now, here at the USM, we understand democracy in two particular ways. Democracy for us is first and foremost, it's a system, a set of methods, a set of procedures to actually non-violently remove a set of governors and install more likely another set of governors, or to keep your existing governors. That's one way of understanding it. That's all it is. It is a system that is non-violent. Secondly, it is a particular culture. It's a particular set of habits, beliefs, actions that people learn and that they share in a society. And if they enact that culture and follow the laws, then generally elections will run smoothly. So democracy is important in relation to the law. Now, tonight, I believe the two distinguished guests will actually be looking at that relationship and explaining to everyone the exact rules and regulations as pertain to the law of how they're supposed to act, each citizen is supposed to act, how each political candidate is supposed to act, so that we can have a non-violent transition once again of the government here on St. Martin. That, I believe, is what we will learn today in a nutshell. Thank you.
First up, we have Bert Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman completed his Dutch studies at the Leiden University. He has extensive experience in legislative and administrative law as it relates to transport, having worked at the ministry in the Netherlands. While on St. Martin from 1995, Mr. Hoffman worked as a government lawyer and legal advisor in the office of the Lieutenant Governor. At one point, he was the interim head of the Department of Legislation and Legal Affairs. In 2005, Mr. Hoffman was admitted to the Bar Association and became part of a private law firm. He is the former president of the Rotary Club of St. Martin, former dean of the Bar in St. Martin, member of the board of the Foundation Degree Legal Profession St. Martin, chairman of the Electoral Council St. Martin, and chairman of the National Board of Probation. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Bert Hoffman.
Good evening, everyone. Protocol indeed being established, and I would like to go over to my part of the lecture. And that concerns the Electoral Council. The Electoral Council has been established by law and is already in the National Ordinance on Registration and Finances of Political Parties since 2010, since the transition of Sint Maarten from an island territory within the constellation of the Netherlands Antilles to a country within the kingdom. And that means that the position of the Electoral Council was of importance with regards to the matters with regards to the elections that may come. And fortunately, there were no direct imminent elections coming up after 10-10-10, because if there were any, well, then we should have made more hurry even with appointing the members of the Electoral Council, as was done last time a few years ago, only 2.5 years ago. We have an Electoral Council that consists of 3 members and 2 acting members. And only recently we have a second group of 2 acting members being appointed by the governor, and they are working very enthusiastically within the framework of the Electoral Council. So, what is exactly the Electoral Council doing? It's you can say that the Electoral Council is responsible for the supervision and compliance with the National Ordinance and Registration of Finances Political Parties. And it functions independently of Parliament and government. We have some important objections in the National Ordinance on Registration Finances of Political Parties. There are 2 things. One is transparency, and the other one is integrity. And it is so that the promotion of a transparent and democratic structure of political parties is envisioned with within the constellation of the new national ordinance. And also the promotion of the integrity of political parties is on the forefront of the goals of this ordinance. And the Electoral Council is charged with the supervision of this all. And with regards to the integrity, it's important that there will be prevention of conflicts of possible interest, and that there will be a promotion of a balanced and clean political process. So how does that work out in the ordinance? In the ordinance we have 2 pillars, actually. You can say there is one with regards to the registration of political parties as political party, and there's the other one, that's the financial administration of political parties. Not only the parties actually, but also the donations are part of thereof, and that is not only limited to the parties themselves, but also to the individual. They also concern the individual candidates of the parties. As I said, registration is one pillar. So if you can look at the law, we see new things. A party can only be registered as a political party in the new system if it is an association. And we have noticed that it's not for everyone so clear all the time. Why can it not be another kind of legal entity? And we as an electoral council were confronted with, with an application for registration that concerned a foundation. And we know that in the past there have been foundations as political parties, but nowadays that is not possible anymore. With aiming for a democratic structure, was also mentioned by the dean of the university, Mr. Guadeloupe, that democracy has to be enhanced, and the choice of the legislator for the association is being one part thereof. The rest is further is so that the electoral council is needs to register any political party that complies with the requirements of the law as such, and also it has a registration of the so-called reference that is on top of the list of candidates. That is something that you have to be very aware. Sometimes one does very easily with regards to the reference, but it's a very formal, precise procedure. You can, allow me one little example. If you have chosen as a party to use the reference, for instance, US party, then you cannot go through life as USP. You have to be very very careful with that. It's meant for the candidate list, but it's confusing if you start using a different abbreviation, a different reference, instead of the one that is officially registered with the Electoral Council. You can always apply for registration as a party, also for a new reference. But you have to bear in mind that there is a limit in time that you can do that in order to be allowed to participate in an upcoming elections. So the law states that if your application is submitted less than 6 weeks in advance of the nomination date, then this will not be done, this will not be handled until after the upcoming elections. 2 years ago, it was with those elections, it was a little bit more stressful, that while nobody was actually registered. But now by these elections, these so-called snap elections, that where everything is going supposed to go very quick, but apparently the people, the parties that are interested in participating in the elections, they were timely and didn't wait too long with their application. Of course, cancellation of registration is possible, but then you have to stop to functioning as a party as such, and say, has that happened? Yes, it has happened more or less already by the Citizens for Positive Change. That party didn't participate at the elections, was registered 2 years ago, but have requested to deregistered this year, and the Electoral Council has agreed with that, as that party was no longer functioning as such. Only one member was left, I believe. And it's the same thing, but you have to bear in mind with regards to the registered reference. Also, you can, of course, that will disappear if the party disappears. But you have to also be careful that there are other possibilities where how you can lose your reference. And if you do not participate in the elections as a party, you are registered as the party and your reference is registered, but if you do not participate in the elections, then you lose the right to carry that reference. So the Electoral Council take it away, and it did that in a particular situation. And then it has to be seen if you reactivate your party and you want to participate in the next elections. It has to be seen if then your former reference is still allowed to be used by the Electoral Council, because other developments may prohibit the choice for your former reference. Another pillar is the financial administration. I start with the candidates. The matter for the candidates is that they have to keep up a registration of the donations that they receive. That is something that only happens, of course, in an election year. Otherwise, there will be no candidates. There is only a limited period that they have to register these donations, how big or small, and that is between the time that the party has appointed these candidates, and for the Electoral Council, it is actually in objective terms. It could not be another moment than the postulation date, and so the period will be from postulation date to the date of the elections, which is stated in the law. So it's a limited period of time that you need to register your donations. You have to keep that registration for 5 years, and you have to submit a copy of that registration to the Electoral Council within a month after the elections. And I show you later on how difficult that can be. So it is not impossible to also register other donations beforehand, before the postulation date, because some candidates are very much aware that they will participate in the elections, and they already collect donations before the postulation date. Those donations are also admitted by the Electoral Council in the registration. There's no problem. Even that serves the matter of transparency, and as such it's encouraged that the candidates also register those donations before that they receive before postulation date. For political parties, it's a different story. The donations for the political party, the registration is a permanent exercise, and permanent for the whole year round, year after year, as long as they are registered as political party. So, of course, there will be more donations in the year that there are elections than in other years, but that doesn't take away that it is an exercise that they have to do well. The registration copy has to be submitted yearly before the 1st of February of the year. And also, of course, for the party is the rule that they have to keep it for 5 years. The annual report is another thing that parties have to submit. Yearly, they have to submit an annual report accompanied by a financial report, and that has to be done ultimately by the 1st of April. The main issue that we had recently, up till now actually in general, with the parties and their financial report, is the issue that about the financial audit that needs to be done. In the law, it states that it has to be done by a register accountant, a registered accountant, if you translate it literally. It was not quite clear what exactly is allowed within the framework of the law, as the law only speaks of register accountant, registered accountant. But we will see where that goes, and parties have had problems with complying with that requirement because it is an expensive issue if you do not have everything in order for the accountant, and there if you start to go to an accountant of one of the bigger firms, then you will notice that that it can be very expensive. But in years thereafter, it apparently the costs will be lower. It's good to know that donations cannot be given in a unlimited way. And actually, that rule primarily directs the donor. If you look into the law, then it states, hey, you can give max to 30,000 to a political party. So that's fine. And you can give 20,000 to a candidate, an individual candidate of a political party. And then there's the third one. You can only give 50,000 to the political party and its candidates. So there you have the limitation complete. You have all kinds of variations possible, of course. But at the end of you can give, for instance, a big party that has also 23 candidates on its list. So the party and the 23 candidates, they can all be given a number of guilders, but the total is 50,000. So what happened then if there is given too much? Nowadays, what is received too much, what was given too much, but on the other side was received too much by the party or the candidate, that will have to be refunded and also recorded. And that is also something that we demand proof of that it also happened. If you look back at the last elections, there were at least 3 situations that a donor gave too much to a political party in that year. And that is maybe not really deliberately, but they had not an idea what exactly was allowed and what was not allowed, and there was no good overview also within the parties what was going on. Candidates were collecting donations, and at the same time the party passed by, and they didn't know how much was already given to its candidates. So for us, as the Electoral Council, that is something that we also do not notice right away. We will see that when the registrations are submitted from the candidates. We received it already a month after the elections, but the party comes in the next year by February, and then we notice hey, if we calculate and we add these donations up, then it appears suddenly that the total is more than 50,000, and okay, those situations have been addressed and in a proper manner, in the correct manner. Okay, the Electoral Council was busy during the first election period, and this is again this time with the Uniform Registry, and has developed an online database that will be used and is available and for the individual candidates to register their donations, so that everything is done in a common and transparent way. So that's something that we appreciate to have. There is one particular obligation in the law that is neither the donations, the financials or the registration. That's the statement that elected and appointed officers have to come with a declaration that they did not violate the content of the national ordinance on registration and finances of political parties. So the candidate who is elected to parliament has to submit that declaration with his or her credentials, and a copy will be given to the electoral council. And also the ministers who have been appointed as such have to give that declaration, but that is then directed to the electoral council directly, and that has to be done within 30 days after their appointment. So there is a difference, of course, then between the candidate and the minister. The candidate cannot be allowed to take a seat in parliament if the statement is not part of its credentials. For the minister, this is different. They already can be appointed because the declaration here referred to is something that only have to be done after their appointment, within 30 days after their appointment. Well, what kind of supervision can we have by the electoral council? Well, inspection is possible. Inspection is possible also by other governmental agencies of books, documents, and other data carriers. Copies, taking copies of documents and data. To take them for that purpose temporarily, and all persons and legal entities are required to cooperate with the assistance that is requested by the electoral council. There is one specific tool that we did not see very often before here in the entities. That's the so-called order subject to penalty, de dwangsom, bestuurlijke dwangsom. That's a tool that the electoral council can apply if someone, a candidate or a party, does not cooperate with the way as the electoral council wants it to act. And we read one particular situation that a party just kept silent and did not react to any request from the electoral council, and then such a penalty was imposed, and in that particular situation that immediately led to action from the side of the party, and everything was accordingly dealt with.